All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday at 3 o'clock. You know what time it is. It's time for our live Q&A. Joining me today for the first time is Adam King of Fantasy Basketball International. I have been on with Adam on his podcast two or three times now. We chat back and forth pretty frequently on Twitter. Have followed his stuff for quite a while. We used to work together at RotoWire. It's a pleasure having you on, brother. How are you?
I'm good. Ready to go nice and early, as we've just discussed it. Luckily, I got up. But no, good. Ready to go. I like live shows because you never know what's going to happen.
That's exactly right, man. And what time is it over in Australia for you right now?
So it's just ticked over 7 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, I'm up. My wife's getting ready for work. My son's probably up somewhere playing Pokemon already, and my daughter probably won't be up for quite a while.
All right, good stuff, man. And before we jump in here, do you want to tell everybody out there a little bit about yourself and what you're working on right now, where we can find you and follow your work?
Yeah, look, it's generally Twitter. At Adam King 91 is the Twitter handle. Fantasy Basketball International, as you said, that's sort of who I work for, and been a little bit quiet. We're just about to relaunch our podcast, and you're aware of that. And we'll have some pretty cool shows coming up, I think. So that'll hopefully be in the next week or so that we'll see out. But generally, it's just Twitter, recapping games, looking ahead, that sort of thing. So that's where to find me.
Perfect. And you can find him on Twitter at AdamKing91. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in here. So, first question, Trey Jones or Nembhard rest of season? This is an easy one for me, but I'll toss it to you first, man.
Trey Jones for me. I think, yeah, I mean, obviously Nembhard, he's starting at the moment, but we're hoping, and I know you're hoping, that Halliburton's not out for too long. But look, Devin Vassell's out. Who knows when he'll come back? I think it'll be after the All-Star break. And Trey Jones has actually been probably the primary beneficiary so far of that injury. So for me, it's Trey Jones.
Yeah, Trey for me as well. He was pretty consistently top 100 guy even before any injuries for San Antonio. So, and TJ McConnell has far outplayed Nembhard so far with Halliburton being out. So, yeah, it's Trey for me. Same user here asks Jalen Williams or Nembhard. It's J-Dub for me all day.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Moving on. 12-team 9-cat looking to acquire Şengün, a guy that we were just talking about before the show. Do you think Mitch Robb 1-for-1 is enough? I don't think it is. Or should I offer Mitch Robb and Horford or Hart? Yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead and say I think Mitch Robb and either of those guys, I would try it. I'm not sure that you're going to – I still don't think that's going to be enough to get Şengün just because of his ceiling, but I think you can try it. It's going to be more than Mitch Robb 1-for-1. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree, especially after yesterday's game. It's probably the wrong time to be trying to get Şengün. Right. Because his manager is going to be asking for a lot more than he probably was a week ago. So, yeah, look, I mean, if his manager is really desperate for blocks, that's sort of your only saving grace there. But generally, yeah, at the moment, I think you're probably going to have to give up a little bit more to get Şengün.
Agree with that. And if you were trying to trade, if you were a Şengün manager, what would you be asking for in return? Would you be looking for somebody in the top 50 or two top 75 guys, something in that range, or would you be looking for a little bit more?
Yeah, look, I've got Şengün in one league. I think if I was offloading him, I'd probably be looking at a top. Well, again, after yesterday's performance, you could push for top 30. I mean, Şengün's not going to be a top 30 player, but you could make a case and say, well, look, he's going to get these minutes now. They're finally running the offense through him. But yeah, I think probably top 50 would be reasonable.
Fair enough. All right. And Şengün yesterday, career high 33 points. Moving on here. Howdy, Zach and Kingy. Thanks for being here. First question, and thanks for tuning in, Daniel. Appreciate your questions every week. First question is IJack safe to throw back to the wire in shallower leagues? Yeah, I'll toss this to you, Adam, but for me, it's a yes in a shallower league.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, look, Turner was back and didn't. There were no indications that his back injury is going to linger or anything like that. So, yeah, I'd be okay with sending him back to the wire, especially in shallower leagues.
Yeah, deeper leagues might be worth holding on to for a game or two, but yeah, otherwise you can find better options on the waiver wire. Let's see here. Hey guys, should I trade Fox and Melton or Fox and Kelly O for Cat? 9 Cat head-to-head, currently tied for second with KD and Ingram, holding up my 2 IL and IL plus spots. Personally, for me, I am not giving up a whole lot for Cat right now. I'm still concerned about how he plays when he comes back. If he plays similarly to what he did starting the season out when he was kind of rusty and just the fit with Gobert was still kind of being worked out, I kind of worry how he's going to do after so much time off. And I'm still kind of worried. I know the Timberwolves went all in, but I still kind of worry about how much they're going to prioritize playing him if they continue to lose games and are essentially out of the playoff race in the West. So I think Fox and Melton, for me, that's a little bit too rich. But I know some people really, they think this is a buy low opportunity for Cat. Do you feel the same way?
Oh, look, I think it is a buy low opportunity, but it's whether as you touched on, whether you're prepared to take that risk. And a little bit like you, I'm not sure. I mean, they haven't really given any positive updates as to when he'll be back. They've said he's still weeks away. I think it's All-Star break, probably. What are we now, 4 weeks from the All-Star break, something like that. So, yeah, I've been offered Cat in the 1 or 2 leagues, and I haven't. I've been tempted, but I haven't bitten, just because I think, if he's out till a post All-Star break, that's a lot to give up for 4 weeks.
What if this is a buy low opportunity for Cat? What's the best player or the range of best players you're willing to give up to get him if you had to, just looking down your roster?
Where are we? I'm just sort of looking through the rankings. Look, maybe I'd give up someone like, I'd say probably a top 100 player. I wouldn't go inside the top 50, 60, maybe 70. I don't know. What about someone like a Michael Porter? Would you give up Michael Porter Jr. for Cat?
Yeah, that's probably right about in the safe zone, I guess. Yeah, a guy that you're not going to be horrified to lose, I guess, off your roster. But I'm still thinking about it, though. I would still think long and hard about it, right?
Yeah. No, he's the around 90th, I think, 89th ranked player. So top 90. Josh Hart is sort of in that range as well. PJ Washington. I'd probably hold Washington. He's been pretty good lately.
Dude, I actually got that question on Twitter, I guess a week or so ago. Somebody asked me, they said, would you trade PJ Washington for Cat? And I said, no, hold on to PJ Washington just because of those concerns. And you're exactly right. PJ started the season out really on a low note. He's really been balling recently. I mean, him and Plumlee both have been awesome for Charlotte.
Yeah, I think the return of LaMelo has helped PJ a lot. He's a little bit more selective with his shots now. He's getting better looks. So he's not sort of blowing up and scoring 30 points. He's getting 15, 18 points, but he's doing it on 5 of 11 shooting or 7 of 12 or something rather than 5 of 18. So I think that's been the biggest difference, is that his percentages have gone up a bit.
Absolutely. All right, moving on here. Wow, I thought you only opened up the mailbag for me, Kingy, from Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh, this is Josh Lloyd. Hope to maybe get him on the show at some point. Me and Kingy have both been on his show before. Appreciate you tuning in, Josh. Thanks for dropping by. Let's see here. Keep holding Nimhard or drop one of the following: Josh Richardson, Alex Caruso, I'm assuming this is Dwight Powell. I'm not even entirely sure what this question's asking. Do I hold Nembhard or drop one of the following?
It
I mean,
might
could
be
you do
or
both?
drop. It might be drop for one of the following.
Drop
So it might
4.
be,
Okay.
and it's, I don't know. Do you think it's Dwight Powell? It might be Norm Powell.
Oh, it could be Norm. If it's Norm Powell, I'm probably dropping Nembhard for Norm Powell, to be honest with you. Nemhard's been pretty disappointing, I think, here the last few games. I know Norm is more of a scoring type of guy, scoring in threes, but I mean him and Man have really stepped up with PG out. Now Marcus Morris is injured. I think Powell is fine. I'm not necessarily interested in Caruso. DeRozan is probable tonight. Josh Richardson's been really good too. I would probably drop Nembhard for either of those two.
Yeah, potentially. Nembhard was a little bit better yesterday. He had good assist numbers, a couple of steals. Just hasn't been hitting his shots. And McConnell blew up yesterday. I think he was like perfect at halftime. He had 25 points on perfect shooting. So probably a bit of an outlier there. I'd potentially drop him for Powell. I think would be the only one there. But I mean, I've got Nembhard in a couple of leagues and I'm holding him. But I really just want him for assists and steals, and he hasn't been too bad in those two categories. So,
all right. So Kingy is holding Nembhard right now. Is Derek White a hold with Jaylen Brown out? Absolutely.
Yep, agree.
All right. John Collins or Jabari Smith, rest of season. And this is Jabari Smith the second, not Jabari Smith that played for Sacramento against LeBron in his very first game. Who are you taking?
Ooh, it's probably John Collins, I think. Jabari Smith has looked better, and I mean, we talked about, again prior to the show, I got to sit down and watch the full Rockets game last night, so mainly because I was watching Şengün, but watching Jabari Smith, his numbers weren't great, but he actually is looking a lot better than he was to open the season. So he's looking more confident on offense. Defensively, he sort of seems to be getting to his spots a little bit more. So he is passing the eye test, and they're obviously rolling with him. But I think John Collins is probably the safer of the two there.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you here. I'm typically a guy that likes the shiny new toy and the young legs and all that kind of stuff in fantasy hoops. But I absolutely think it's Collins just because he's always just a really steady. He's just always a steady contributor, right? He gets it done for you in so many different categories. He's usually locked into top 50 production, or top 70, I think, is probably his floor. And I don't think that Smith has that secure of a floor, that high of a floor necessarily, just because his percentages have been kind of wacky this year. I mean, as a rookie, it's understandable. But yeah, I think Collins is the much safer option for sure. I think in maybe even as soon as next year or 2 years, completely different conversation. But for right now, it's Collins.
Yeah, I think if we give us 12 months, there might be a different answer to this question.
Trade Banchero and Duran for Anthony Edwards. Absolutely.
I'd be okay with doing that, I think. Yep.
All right. Would you stash Jonathan Isaac in deeper leagues in hopes he makes noise come silly season? I'll toss this one to you first, man.
Oh, look, you could consider it, but I think that you'd have to be sitting pretty comfortable in the standings. You'd have to have a pretty deep roster. So I mean, I think it's something to consider if you're well placed. But if you need production now, that the element of risk is always there. Like, we're hearing positive things. He's been playing in the G League. But even when he's back, he's going to be limited. He's going to sit back-to-backs. The Magic roster is, now they're getting all their guys back. They're they're quite deep. They're not super talented, but they've got a lot of guys who can play 20 minutes. So I don't think he plays more than sort of 18 minutes anytime soon, even when he is back. So yeah, look, consider it, but I wouldn't prioritize him as a stash.
Yeah, I'm absolutely not stashing him. I'll take the more, I guess, the opposite view of that, or less kind of middle of the road view here. I'll just go the complete opposite end here. I'm not stashing him. I don't think he has any fantasy value this season. I know he was expected to, or maybe he did play in the G League last week. His rehab has been coming along pretty well. But as you mentioned, man, they have so many guys that are, Wendell Carter is back and healthy, Bobo, Mo Bamba, the Wagner brothers, Banchero that they drafted number 1. There's just so many options in that front court. And with him missing over 2 years of basketball, I can't see them rushing him back. Take the slow and steady approach, get him back for a little bit, and maybe talk about this differently next year. But I just don't see what the potential upside is for a guy that, is 18 minutes probably his ceiling this year. I would say I can't see any more than that.
Yeah, no, like I'm just trying to stay positive, but generally speaking, it's a no.
Right. All right, let's see here. How long do we hang on to Okongwu, and what's going on with Bryant? Still a hold? I would hang on to Okongwu maybe for another game, maybe a game or two, and just see how he does. He played, I think, 6 more minutes than Capella yesterday, 21 minutes to 27, if I remember correctly. And what's going on with Bryant? I don't know what's going on with Bryant, other than just Wenyen Gabriel has been eating into his minutes here over the last week. Gabriel's averaging somewhere in the 25-minute per game range, I want to say, over the last week. And he's been playing well. Kingy, what are we doing here with Okongwu, and what are we doing with Bryant? Holding both, dropping one or the other?
I think we're holding both. Okongwu, as you said, he played more minutes yesterday, but they're going to ramp Capella up. So I think, if Okongwu's getting 22 minutes a night, he's probably a hold. But if it does get to the point where Capella's playing 30, 32 minutes and Okongwu's back to 16, then he'd be a drop. But I don't know. The Hawks may be cautious for 2 weeks. We don't know. So I just hold until you sort of reach that threshold where his minutes drop below 20 or 18. And for Bryant, look, he had a really good run for about a week, 2 weeks there. But, there's a reason he's been shipped around and traded a bit. Like, he's not a great defender. He gets blocks, but doesn't mean you're a good defender if you get blocks. So, I think the Lakers are realizing that and going, as you said, Wenyen Gabriel's been really energetic off the bench. So I think Bryant's still a hold. He just got Şengün'd yesterday. So it was it was just a bad game, but I'd still be holding him, I think, until Davis is back.
All right. Another question about Isaiah Jackson. Are you suggesting people hold him with the prospect of Turner getting traded before the deadline? I still don't fully buy into these Turner trade rumors. We've heard about them for 5 years, I think. And the team is playing way better than anybody expected. So I'm not sure if they want to break up the band right now, especially with how well they've been playing. And I don't know that you can necessarily afford to hold Isaiah Jackson. He's very valuable when Turner is out, and doesn't really give you much at all when Turner's available.
Yeah, I'm not. Again, I'm much like you. I'm not really buying into these Turner trade rumors, and we haven't heard them for a while. And I think there was actually a rumor recent-ish that they're now working on an extension with him. So it makes no sense to trade him. I don't know why you would, because he fits the modern NBA so well. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit confusing. He looks to play really well alongside Halliburton. They've got a really nice young core. Turner's, I don't know how old Turner is. Do you know how old he is?
26, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So he's still, theoretically, he's not even in his prime yet. Look, I don't think they'll trade him. I mean, I could be wrong, but yeah, I wouldn't be stashing Isaiah Jackson.
Agreement from me there. Another question about Wenyen Gabriel. Is he a pickup right now, and what's his rest of season outlook? Yeah, I think he is a pickup right now. For those reasons that you mentioned, he's been good with rebounds. He's been good with field goal percentage, defensive stats. Rest of season outlook, I think he's a good pickup right now just to see how things go in that in that front court. But I mean, since LeBron got there, the Lakers front court has really been Anthony Davis and then everybody else a distant second. So I don't know how much you can really rely on any sort of consistency out of Gabriel or out of Thomas Bryant. I think you just have to go with the hot hand and just kind of play the waiver wire. What say you?
Yeah, agreed. I think he's a pickup at the moment, but once Davis is back, again, I mean, they might ease him back in a little bit. So there may be a window of a week where he does still have some value, but once Davis is back, they're going to have to pick. They're going to either run Gabriel or Bryant as the backup, and that could be a little bit matchup dependent, depending whether they need more offense or more defense. So, yeah, pick up for now, but rest of season outlook, I don't think he's a 12-team guy.
Agreed. Bones or Fultz, rest of season in a 9-cat roto. What do you think about this one?
Fultz for me, pretty easily.
Yeah, it's Fultz for me as well, just because he offers more. Bones is mostly just a points and threes guy. Fultz gives you a bit more well-rounded stat line. Why buy a cat who's not close when AD is a lot closer and likely still available at a buy low? Are you buying low on AD right now, or are you concerned even more about his injury than Cat's?
No, I mean, I'm not. Oh, look, I mean, if I could buy low, I might, but I think AD will be back before Cat, based on what we're hearing from the two teams and what they're trying to do. The Lakers need to win. Like they can't afford to give a high draft pick to the Pelicans. So the Lakers need to keep winning. They're looking better. So I think they're going to want to get Anthony Davis back. And I think it'll be a lot harder to buy on Anthony Davis, given that he's the number one player. I mean, he's out, obviously, and managers will be frustrated. But Cat wasn't great before he went down. He was looking better, but he wasn't the number one player like Anthony Davis. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot harder to buy low on Anthony Davis.
Yeah, I agree with you. And not too many guys in the league have the number one overall player upside. I mean, even Giannis with his free throw percentage, are we ever going to see him be the number one player in fantasy? I don't think so. So these guys are few and far between. We have another one for AD. This is an interesting one. Interested to hear your opinion on this one. Would you trade the unicorn for AD in a 12-team 9-cat?
Oh, that is an interesting one. If I had Porzingis, I don't know. Again, you'd have to be sitting pretty comfortably at the top of your standings to give up. Because I mean, AD I did say I think he'll be back before Cat, but it still might be 2 to 3 weeks until he's back. And fantasy playoffs should be starting sort of a week or two after the All-Star break. So you might only get AD for 3 weeks, whereas you could have 6 or 7 weeks of Porzingis, who's been really, what's Porzingis this season? I don't even know.
He's 19th.
19th. So, yeah look, I probably would consider it, but I think I'd probably just stick with Porzingis.
Yeah, that's the way I lean as well. I mean, it would be tempting to a degree, but I mean, even to your point about if you're sitting pretty, I think if you're sitting pretty, Porzingis is probably a good reason why. I mean, he was going in the 40s and 50s in drafts, and now he's giving you, top 20 value, and he hasn't missed a ton of time this season like we're used to seeing with him. So I think the fit in Washington has been great. He's really been excellent for them. And yeah, I would hold him over AD just because the next 2 or 3 weeks, what are you going to do if you trade Porzingis away and stash him on AD on IL? Who are you filling in to make up those numbers? It would be daunting to try to do that.
I think watching Porzingis too, I mean, obviously he's got that injury history like Anthony Davis, but Porzingis does look to have filled out. Like he looks as though he's just watching him. I remember watching him. He used to always look like he was just about to be injured when he would go drive in, take the ball inside, that sort of thing. He just looked like he was going to snap, but now he doesn't. Now he actually looks like he's filled out and he's got some muscle. And so, I'm not as concerned about Porzingis, shockingly.
Yeah, total agreement here. This is a pretty easy one for me. Hero or MPJ? It's Hero for me.
Yeah, I think so. I don't have either of those guys anywhere, I don't think. But Hero's been just quietly putting up, I think, top 50, top 60 values, something like that. He's been pretty good. And Miami, I mean, Jimmy Butler, God, he misses talking of injured players.
Yeah, really.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Butler's played a couple of games in a row, which probably means he's due for a week off. So, Hero, pretty comfortably.
All right, so that was a comfortable one. Here is a potentially uncomfortable one. This one is great questions today. Valanciunas or Portis? Obviously, Valanciunas over the last, I think he has 6 out of the last 7 games. He has a double-double. He's been scoring. He's been putting up 20-point double-doubles with regularity since Zion got injured. So he's been great. Obviously, Bobby Portis has been filling in well for Giannis. He's averaging a career high in rebounds at 10 a game, despite coming off the bench for most of the season. Also one of the league leaders in double-doubles. Who are we going with here, JV or Crazy Eyes, rest of season?
Oh, I think I'm not sure there's a sort of a correct choice there. I think either would be fine. I think they're probably pretty close. And it really depends on who's out on their team, because we've seen when Giannis is out or Lopez is out, Portis steps up and he's a top 60, top 70 player. Valanciunas, likewise, with Zion out, has been really good. But once Zion's back, we saw Valanciunas playing 20 minutes. Larry Nance was playing a lot more at center. So, I don't think there's sort of a right or wrong answer here. I think you could go either way. Giannis's knee worries me a little bit moving forward. I think he's going to be rested on and off the rest of the season, whereas the Pelicans will want to play Zion once he's back. So, I don't know, maybe Portis has a little bit more upside in terms of his role long term, but I'd go either way there.
Yeah, I think it's close, but it'll be Bobby P for me, just for the reasons you mentioned. I think his role is much more secure, even when Giannis is healthy, compared to Valanciunas's. Once Zion returns, I think we're going to see a pretty big dip. But yeah, that was a great question. Let's see here. Ivy or Bowl in a keeper league for 3 years. That'll be Ivy for me. And that one, I don't think that one's really close at all. Everybody fell in love with Bowl at the beginning of the season. It was awesome. He's still fun. He's still a lot of fun to watch. But we talked about it several times on this show already. This is a crowded front court rotation in Orlando. Jonathan Isaac is ramping back up again, so that's just another mouth to feed. I think Ivy is obviously it's his first season, draft pedigree. Detroit is going to play him big minutes and have him starting forever. And I think there's still a lot of questions about Bowl, is this year 4 or 5 for him, and now finally starting to see some minutes. So it's Ivy for me very easily. Yeah,
I mean, I'm no sort of dynasty keeper league expert or anything, but for me, it's Ivy pretty comfortably as well. I mean, Bowl was fun. It was cool at the start of the season, but we've already seen him scaled back, and they've got, as you said, they've got Isaac to come back. They've got Suggs to ramp up. I think it's Ivy, and his percentages have been a bit off this year, but they've got Cade to come back next year, which will help Ivy, and they're probably going to get another really high draft pick as well. So Ivy pretty comfortably.
All right. Missed this one earlier. Who can I trade Jalen Green and Keldon Johnson for? Their percentages are killing me in 8 games cap roto. League mates are wary of those percentages. Yeah, that I think that's understandable that people are wary of the percentages. They have been killer this year. This is a good question. I'll toss this one to you, Adam, while I mull this over for a second.
Yeah, look, it's the players like this are always tough because they score a lot. Both would probably be over 20 points a game this year. But no, it wouldn't surprise me if neither of them are inside the top 150 because of their percentages. So if you are going to trade them off, you need to find someone who needs points because in a roto league, it's going to be tough because you need production across the board. Whereas in a head-to-head league, if you can find someone that doesn't necessarily need percentages, if they're punting percentages, then Green and Keldon both get a huge boost. So I think if you can find the right person or the right manager to trade them to, you could potentially get probably a sort of a top 80 guy back because if they don't need, I'd say if you're punting percentages, as I said, what are your thoughts? I'll have a look at what the rankings are.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I think it's going to be, you have to trade it to somebody you have to trade these guys to somebody that needs points and potentially somebody that needs threes. Keldon for that a little bit more than Green, obviously. But yeah, it's going to be tough to find a manager that wants to take on the field goal percentage because, as you mentioned, in a roto league, you can maybe punt one category like field goal percentage, but that's tough to punt anything in a roto league. You really want to be competitive in every category. So, I think at this point with these guys, you're just going to have to trade for the best available guy you can get. Green is outside the top 200 in 9-cat. I don't know, what is he ranked in 8-cat? That's something I'm going to have to look up here. And yeah, Keldon is ranked near the top, the bottom of the 200, I should say. So yeah, I don't know if I can point to a specific player, but I think if you can get a top 100 guy for either of these guys, you go ahead and take it.
Yeah, so I've just pulled up if you can find someone that is punting percentages and don't care about turnovers, then both of them are basically top 100 players. So there's sort of, I guess, somewhere to aim for, maybe a top 100, because neither of them really get any defensive stats either too. So it's not even just the percentages; it's the fact that they don't really help you in a lot of spots. So find the right manager, you might get a top 100 guy.
Agreed. All right. If you had to drop one, Fultz or McConnell, I'm guessing McConnell. Yeah, I think I'm dropping McConnell just because his run is going to end here in a couple of weeks when Halliburton comes back. Yeah,
same for me. Once Halliburton's back, and God, I hope he's back soon. Fultz has looked really good. I've really been impressed by him this season. So I think, I think it would be McConnell for me.
What does Portland need to do to compete for a playoff spot? Win more games. Plain and simple, they just need to win some more games. Dame can't do everything. What do you think about Portland this year? They making the playoffs? I think they do make the playoffs.
Look, I think they're thereabouts. I don't even know where they are in the standings. God, that's one thing, I guess, as a fantasy analyst, I don't look at the standings a lot. You tend to just get a feel for where teams are, and I would figure that Portland are sort of in that play-in range. Where are we? Yeah, so they're 10th, but only a win out of 6th. Like it's actually pretty bunched there from sort of the 3rd, 4th seed. It's all the way through to the 12th, even the 13th seed. There's only 5 games in it, so a lot of teams pushing there. Yeah, look, what do they need to do? I don't know. They need some depth. Their starting 5 is decent, but they don't really have anyone off the bench. Shaden Sharp could be that guy, but he's not there yet. So I think they need to sign, if they are going to make that push and sign some players, they need to get some scoring off the bench. And I think Winslow's been out, so that hurts him a little bit. He's a bit of a sort of a guy that can do a bit of everything, but knowing his injury history, I wouldn't count on him to be there all too often.
Right. Yeah, they're not necessarily a very deep team at all. And the starting five, I mean, yeah, it's good. It's Dame, it's Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant. Josh Hart gives you some hustle and some rebounds. I don't know how much else he gives you other than that, and Nurkic can never stay healthy. So, yeah, I agree with you. A little bit more depth would certainly help their case. All right, let's see. Moving on here. TJ McConnell and Depot rest of season. Should we hold on to both until the end? And should I drop Kelly Oubre? Thanks, Zach and Adam. TJ McConnell and Depot, I don't think you're going to be holding McConnell beyond Halliburton returning. I think Depot you are going to be holding. I know Miami's injury list is usually the longest in the league every single night. It's ridiculous. Everybody's hurt all the time. But Depot over the last couple of weeks, he's been playing 30 minutes a night, which is, that's fantastic for a guy that we've had durability concerns about for, since he came to Miami. And he's been doing great, right? He had 10 assists last night. It was his first double-digit assist game in 5 seasons. He's been racking up steals consistently. He's been getting he's just really been helping out across a bunch of different categories for fantasy managers. So Depot, yes, hold rest of season. McConnell, stream for right now and enjoy the production. Oubre, I don't think is necessarily a must hold for right now. But if you can stash him on IL, go ahead.
Look, I agree. McConnell for the next week, whatever it is, he's a hold. Then he'll probably be a drop. Oladipo, I added him in a couple of leagues and he's been really good. Top 85 over the last month. And as you said, playing over 30 minutes a night. So they're obviously pretty comfortable with his injury at the moment. They're not being cautious with him. He's been one of their most consistent players. Should I drop Kelly Oubre? Yeah, I think that's fine.
PJ Wash had a lot of questions about, or a lot of discussion about Washington today, I guess I should say, or Kelly O when healthy in a 9-cat. I'm going with PJ Washington here, man. As we talked about earlier, he really sucked at the beginning of the year, and he's been awesome recently. As you alluded to, LaMelo Ball has really helped him out a lot, and just helped him get, I think you said, more selective with his shots, which I think is a good way of putting it. Percentages have started to improve. And I think with Olynyk, I think what Walker Kessler has been doing recently, I think is going to, even when Olynyk gets healthy, I don't think that's necessarily his starting job again as soon as he's available. I think Kessler has kind of pushed his way into that conversation to be the starter the rest of the way. So it's going to be Washington for me.
Yeah, Washington for me as well. I think we saw Olynyk starting to trend down a little bit before he got injured. I mean, he was coming back from an injury, so it's a bit hard to get a true read on that. But as you said, Kessler has been phenomenal. I'm surprised we haven't had more Kessler questions, actually, after yesterday's performance.
I know.
But, yeah, look, I think, Utah, after that hot start, they're starting to fall back in the rankings. So it wouldn't surprise me if even when Olynyk comes back, they bring him off the bench and just keep Kessler as the starter. So,
and funny you mentioned that, because given Walker Kessler's recent output, how much of a hit do you foresee Olynyk will take upon his return? And I think we both answered that question. Kessler is going to see a lot more run. Olynyk is not going to be nearly as viable as he was before. And for anybody that didn't see yesterday, Kessler with a 2020 game, and I think one of 2 or 3 rookies in NBA history to have such a performance, at least over the last 20 or so seasons. Let's see here. Just for fun. All right, this is a good one. Just for fun, what would be your guess on Victor's ADP for next season? What do you think about this?
Yeah, so this is actually a question that, what what the podcasts that I've got coming up, where I'm going to be talking to some analysts. And this is actually going to be the last question for every analyst: is where do you think Wembanyama is drafted next year? And I've had this discussion with friends, with guys in my league. I think probably top 20. I reckon he'll go inside the top 20. I don't think he'll be a first rounder, but there's a chance he goes on the turn. I reckon if someone, if like this year, there are sort of 15 to 20 players who could potentially be a first round guy. So you might get to draft like Paul George if he's healthy, or like those sort of guys who probably second rounders, but could be first rounders. If you can pair someone who's got a pretty solid ceiling and you get a manager who's willing to take a bit of a risk, I reckon he could go on the turn. But I would say top 20, probably second round.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I was going to say top 30 to 50, but yeah, listening to you talk about that, I think you're right. And I think just the level of hype, because this isn't just Zion at Duke. This isn't LeBron out of high school. This is a fever pitch, right? We've been trailing this guy for over a year now. ESPN airs his games sometimes. Twitter, social media just goes nuts over him. I mean, I saw his feet more times than I cared to the last few days, just because there was all these reports. Oh, he wears a size 20 and a half shoe, right? So, and the point behind it is he's bigger than Gobert. Obviously, he's skinny, but he's taller than Gobert. He has ridiculous handles. He has ridiculous range. He might be Kristaps Porzingis 2.0 with a higher ceiling. So all of that hype, I think people will probably take him. You're probably right. Probably top 20. We might even see some guys just reach for him in the first round just for fun, right? It's fantasy hoops. Some people might just go out on a limb for him.
Yeah, I think so. I think, where he goes and where he should be going are two different questions. And I think, as you said, with all the hype, it's pretty rare that a rookie will have a season, a top 50 season or anything like that. But I think Cat did, from memory. I think Cat was maybe a top 30 player in his rookie season. So, I mean, if you sort of just compare those two directly, well, I mean, Wembanyama's ceiling is well above Cat's at the moment. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he goes in the first round in some leagues.
All right, time for just a few more questions. Obviously, I didn't get to all of these here. There's a ton of questions. If we didn't get to your question, reach out to us on Twitter. Adam's really good about responding. I'm usually pretty good about responding to questions as well. Let's move on here. Hi, Zach and Adam. I have Bowl on the wire. Still worth a spot. Kingy, what are we doing here with Bowl?
If it's in a standard league, maybe. Would depend who you're dropping. I wouldn't be sort of just dropping anyone to grab him. Like he's going to be this point of difference for your team and going to lift you up in the rankings. That upside's not there anymore. So, yeah, look, if you've got a spot, someone that's injured that you can just drop, then maybe. But I wouldn't be just grabbing him for anyone.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think he's in the must roster category like he was even, maybe a month ago. All right, let's see here. Let's find a couple of good ones. We'll go for two more questions here. Let's see here. All right, here we go. Good streaming question. Sounds like Kyrie and Murray both won't play tonight. Any streamers you'd recommend? Any guys you're looking at to stream tonight, Kingy? Anybody that really pops out to you for? So we'll introduce it like this. It's a 4-game slate, very small slate, limited number of streamers tonight. We have Raptors and Bucks. Obviously, Giannis and Middleton are going to be out. We have Nets and Spurs, injuries there as well with Kyrie. We have Vassell out for the Spurs. Blazers and Nuggets, Jamal Murray is going to sit. And 76ers and Clippers, Paul George and I believe Marcus Morris has been ruled out for this one as well. So who are we looking at to stream tonight?
So I'm just having, I mean, directly related to those guys, I guess for Jamal Murray, you may be looking at Bones if he's available. Bruce Brown, if he's available, they'd probably be the two that I'd look at. In terms of Kyrie, it's probably Joe Harris, Seth Curry, TJ Warren. He's probably been added in most leagues. They'd probably be the direct sort of replacements, I guess. And then if you're looking at other games, I don't really like anyone on the Spurs. It's hard to know who to stream there. Maybe Norm Powell might be someone if he's floating around on your waiver wire. You could look at. It's not a deep slate. There's no one really for the Raptors that I like. Not really anyone for the Blazers that I like. So that's probably it. Not really anyone for the Sixers either. So you're probably limited to a few teams there. So there are a few options, but not a ton.
And for the Sixers, it looks like, I just want to double check on this. I'm pretty sure that Harden is questionable tonight. If Harden ends up sitting, are you taking a chance on? No, it doesn't look like Harden is. Looks like Melton. Looks like Melton is injured right now. Are you taking a chance on somebody like a Shake Milton, or are we just looking elsewhere?
Look, if Melton doesn't play, I mean, it looks like he's probable, but I mean, these illnesses, they can flare up. Sort of, it could be that he's looking like he's going to play, but then in 3 hours' time, because they play late, so it could be that in tip-off's probably in what time do they play?
So that's 10, the late game. That's 10 o'clock
game too. So it's sort of 6 hours till they play. So he could very well go downhill. So if he doesn't play, then they probably just slide Maxey back into the starting lineup. Milton could be someone to look at there. So, but I mean, with a lot of leagues, you can't make pickups after the first game tips, which is a bit frustrating.
Yeah, definitely not a great slate for streamers. I think for Milwaukee, you could potentially look at a Pat Connaughton. You can look at a George Hill or a Jordan Noir if you're in a really deep league. Shake Milton, perhaps. Josh Richardson, I think, is somebody to consider for the Spurs. As you mentioned, Bones and Bruce Brown. But, yeah, nobody super thrilling. Go for, let's see here. Do we think Vic's ADP takes a hit if he lands with the Magic? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, potentially. I mean, if you had to look at, because I do look at, obviously the bottom three teams get the same chance at getting that number one pick. Are there any teams that you'd prefer to see him on next year?
So if we're looking at the teams that have the best shot at getting him, I think we're looking at Charlotte, obviously, towards the lottery. I don't necessarily know if I want to see him in Charlotte. I don't think do we think he's going to be like a pick and roll or a lob threat? I don't know if that's necessarily going to be how he fits in with LaMelo Ball. Looking at some of these other teams here down the list, Houston, that might be fun to see him in Houston. San Antonio, that might be another fun one. And then we're looking at Detroit and Orlando. Definitely don't want to see him in Orlando. I think he could be interesting in Detroit. I don't know necessarily if any one of these teams is better than the other. I would have to say my favorite would be Houston, just because they're a fun young team, and I think he could. If you had a team with Vic, Şengün, KPJ, Jalen Green, and some of these other role players, Tari Eason and some of these guys, I think that would be a pretty fun watch. Where are you looking for him to land?
Yeah, sort of the same. I don't know if I'd be as excited to see him on the Spurs, just because I don't know. I don't think they've got that great of a core at the moment. They don't really. There's not really anyone there that excites me other than maybe Devin Vassell. Charlotte, as you said, I think it'd be fun to watch him on Charlotte, just in terms of how it works, but it may not work. Detroit, I don't mind. They've got some nice young players. Houston is probably the team for me. I'm not sure how they'd work it with Şengün, Jabari Smith, and Wembanyama. Whether they sort of go that Utah path and play three bigs and play Jabari Smith at the three potentially, which he could. I don't think he'd be ready to do it yet, but if you can get him moving his feet and turn him into a player that can guard the wing, then maybe he would work as a three. But look, if he did go to the Magic, I don't think his ADP would take a hit. I think people are just going to draft him based on the hype, as you said, and who he is and what he brings. So, and the Magic, I have no faith in the Magic, but if they did get him, they should be playing him. But any team that gets him should be playing him as the starter. It shouldn't matter that they've got a loaded front court because he's clearly the best player if they do get him.
Right. All right, Adam, I appreciate you joining me today, man. I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Before you jump off of here, you want to let everybody know where they can find and follow you on Twitter, and go ahead and make sure to plug anything that you're working on right now.
Yeah, it's so Twitter is at AdamKing91. In terms of what we're working on, as I've said, we are about to launch or relaunch our podcast. We had a podcast, but we're just making a few tweaks, and we're giving it a different name, and that's more just because I wanted to have a bit more not control over it, but there's a podcast that I've wanted to do for a few years, and I've now got the opportunity. So. So that'll be launching, hopefully in the next week to 2 weeks. And then I guess draft, the trade deadline is approaching. I think is it February 9th? Is that the deadline? Something like that. So 3 weeks. So I would assume that, NBC and we might as well. There'll be trade deadline shows and that sort of thing coming up in the next few weeks, and I'm sure that we'll chat again at some point on one of those shows somewhere.
Absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to it. And once again, I appreciate you coming on, brother. We will talk to you later, and thank you to everybody for tuning in. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.